Zionists are rebranding, and you should be aware. If you've seen my last video about liberal Zionists and how they're just as fascistic as right-wing Zionists, only in a different font, you know that they're not to be trusted. Zionists know that they have an image problem, and that people with a conscience don't want anything to do with them. So the marketing executives have come up with a plan on how to co-opt pro-Palestine sentiment and funnel it right back into their coffers. J Street, which is a Zionist lobbying group, has been working on this plan for months. They've been challenging themselves to figure out how they can still be a Zionist lobbying group with power and influence in DC, while pretending to be throwing progressive voters a bone. So they triangulated this pitch. No more US taxpayer aid to Israel. Clean line for the Zionist politicians J Street sponsors, like Ro Khanna, Dan Goldman, and A.O. Flippity-Flop, that pretends to meet the moment while subverting the truth. According to the Institute for Middle East Understanding project, this pitch was actually hatched by Israel itself and is actually designed to further enmesh the US in its oppression of Palestinians. The emerging plan is to substitute formal military funding, known as foreign military financing, with greater US taxpayer-funded co-development and co-production of weapons with Israel. This development would further enmesh the US in Israel's oppression of Palestinians, and by extending the co-development and co-production of weapons into the spheres of cyber, AI, border, and drones, would help the Trump administration replicate Israel's dystopian control over the Palestinian people to advance his domestic, authoritarian agenda. Here's A.O. Flippity-Flop rolling out this new pitch in a tweet saying, "The Israeli government is well able to fund the Iron Dome system, which has proven critical to keeping innocent civilians safe from rocket attacks and bombardment." You see, she's not against selling the apartheid state the Iron Dome materials, which they buy from the US exclusively. She just wants them to pay for it. Here's another Zionist, Ro Khanna, amplifying this new messaging rollout, saying, "The Iron Dome is important and saved lives. Israel should be able to buy it on their own with a $45 billion defense budget." This is how American politicians always work, by co-opting the popular will of the moment and placating it with something that still keeps American corporations happy. J Street knew that they needed to change their messaging, but their policy substance is still very much Zionist, dressed in sheep's clothing. I'm actually disgusted with any so-called progressive who still to this day take J Street money, which colloquially everyone refers to as Diet AIPAC. J Street withdrew their endorsement of Congressmember Rashida Tlaib, the only anti-Zionist member of Congress, because Rashida supports the one-state solution, with equal rights from the river to the sea. J Street explained Zionistically that they wouldn't endorse any candidate who didn't support the two-state delusion. That means anyone they do endorse has to first commit to being a Zionist. That's how the liberal Zionist wing operates, targeting the left by pretending to be the left, sort of like a predator in the wild, wearing its victim's skin and parading it around like a suit. But so-called journalists aren't calling out J Street for their deception, they're celebrating it as a quote-unquote win. As shameless AOC stenographer Ryan Grimm commented, "Huge! J Street now backs blocking all aid to Israel, including 4 defensive weapons like Iron Dome. Just weeks ago this was a controversial position for Democrats, now J Street is backing it. A few years ago a Democrat could get censored for holding this position. AOC moving on this move the field." Now you might be wondering, why is Ryan Grimm trying so hard to make this appear to be a win for A.O. Flippity-Flop as a mover and a shaker who gets things done? Palestine from the beginning has been AOC's kryptonite, and the left has been, rightly, savaging her on it for years, calling out her hypocrisy and terrible voting record. But because Ryan doesn't have journalistic standards, he sees A.O. Flippity-Flop's reputation as his to protect, like a middle-aged white knight. In a Vanity Fair article, Ryan Grimm admitted he and A.O. Flippity-Flop have a quote-unquote tight relationship and that they text each other every day. That is not journalism. That is not even access journalism. That's just unprofessional and frankly creepy. Journalists aren't supposed to have a tight relationship with anyone in power, or do transparent PR for them. They're supposed to scrutinize them and expose the ways in which they lie to people they claim to represent. Sadly for A.O. Flippity-Flop and their very middle-aged white savior, people see through the coordination and triangulation. People aren't just demanding a new talking point, They're demanding an end to Zionism, to all forms of supremacy, and no amount of rebranding can make J Street or any Zionist less radioactive. Democrats can either get with the program, join Rashida, and endorse the one-state solution with equal rights from the river to the sea, and the right of all Palestinian refugees and their descendants to return, or they can stay Zionists and lose. Your choice.